I'm going to convene the meeting of the City Council for November 20th. Please join us by standing and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the roll?
Legansky.
Here.
Shower.
Here.
Stompanato.
Here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Kenny.
Here.
Gustafson.
Here.
Belzak.
Here.
7 present.
We have a quorum. Takes us to questions, comments, and announcements of a general nature. This is an opportunity for people to add something that's not necessarily on our agenda that they might want to inform us of. Tonight, I would ask those of you who are here regarding the housing that you save those comments for when we actually hit that item on our agenda. Appreciate that. But if anybody has anything not related to our agenda they want to add, you're welcome to go to the microphone. Okay. All right, that takes us to approval of our minutes for the City Council for November 6, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve? Alderman Stompanato, seconded by Alderman Shower. Any questions or comments? If none, the roll.
Stompanato.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Legansky.
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Gustafson.
Aye.
7 ayes.
The minutes have been approved. Takes us to receiving of communications. Do any of the aldermen have communications they'd like to share with the council? Mary?
I have been getting a couple different emails in Ward 5, and I know this has been an issue kind of throughout the city regarding streetlights and the need for repair. And I've been communicating with Dan Gombeck and Chris Thram, and it's been a supplier issue, the service that we use, correct, Dan?
Well, that's correct. We've also switched recently from a city council approval last 2 weeks ago. We have new fixtures that are coming, so we're hoping to have an inventory of approximately 20 fixtures in at all times. But that does not relieve Leotech from their responsibility under the warranty. So while they've been honoring the warranty for the replacement boards, the problem has been the supply chain of actually getting some of the components for the warranty issues. So again, we're trying to preempt it. We understand safety is important, and for the minimal cost for the fixtures, they'll be in hand by the city of Darien.
And will all the fixtures that are coming in meet the needs of what needs to be done?
I'm hoping to have everything completed by Thanksgiving. I believe we had 25 outages, and that's provided that they're just the light bulbs and there's not line trouble, because if there's line trouble, that gets to be a little more elaborate with the construction techniques that are involved for that.
I think the light fixture on Evergreen Lane, was that a power electrical issue as well?
There's one that's a fault. I think we have 2 that are faults, and I can't recall the locations. I think one's in your ward, yes.
Okay.
Eric?
Yeah, I received 4 emails and 1 phone call regarding the duplex development.
Okay. Anything else on this side? Okay. That takes us to our mayor's report. And I have a number of items under my mayor's report tonight. But the first item that I have involves a very special person. I was informed of this last week. This is a gentleman who Saturday celebrated his 99th birthday. It's really funny what you learn.
Thank you.
Toby lives right across from a good friend of mine, Frank Pontrelli, and he lives in a subdivision with my good friend Joe Bosch. Toby, you want to sit down still? And I just learned tonight that his daughter is actually a young woman, her and her husband, bowled with my wife and I for 17 years. But I just found out that that's his daughter. But I would like to read the following. Mr. Panisi has been a resident of the city of Darien for 25 years, residing on Bailey Park on Capra Trail. Mr. Panisi is a World War II veteran, having served in the Army 3rd Division with General Patton from 1943 to 1946. Mr. Panisi's service to his country has been recognized by his being awarded a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star. Mr. Panisi and his wife Angela were married for 70 years before her passing in 2019. They have 2 children, Carrie and her husband Scott, who reside in Darien, and while son Gary and his wife Nicolette reside in Burr Ridge. Mr. Panisi has 1 grandson, Jackson, who graduated from West Point, served 7 years, and was honorably discharged in 2015 as a captain. Mr. Panisi spent 38 years as a millwright at the National Can Company located in Chicago. Mr. Panisi, on behalf of the city of Darien, its residents, its elected officials, and staff, we want to say thank you for your service to our country and our community. And we want to wish you a very happy 99th birthday, which took place this last Saturday. You are truly one of Darien's finest, and you were one of the reasons why we call Darien a nice place to live. Let's give an applause.
Order a cake.
Toby. My honor to have a picture taken with you.
I wanted to thank you all for what you did for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary says he has to get home because he's beyond his bedtime.
Yeah.
To the entire council and the mayor, thank you very, very much.
Oh, my gosh.
Thank you very much.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you all for
No, thank you.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Hope we have a cake next year.
That brings us to the second item on our agenda, on my agenda. I always work to deceive an individual when I'm going to give them an award. And tonight I told this individual that we were going to be honoring the Garden Club, which we are. But we're actually going to be giving out an award to a specific individual tonight. So I'm going to read the following. Tonight our agenda lists Garden Club recognition. And while we want to pay tribute to the Darien Garden Club, our real purpose is to recognize an individual without whose leadership there would be no Darien Garden Club. Tonight we honor an individual who was the founding member of our local award-winning garden club since its inception in 2001. For over 22 years, she has beautified our community, educated the public about gardening and environmental issues, and has supported environmental initiatives through numerous other organizations. Just a few examples of her service include supporting the IPPL, the Indian Prairie Public Library, through garden planting and maintenance, co-hosting community events such as seed swaps, BioBlitz, and iNaturalist education, provided support for and tours of the Darien Park District native habitats, maintained local public and gardening spaces such as the VFW Peace Memorial Garden. Through the Darien Garden Club Garden Therapy Team, she works with seniors at 2 assisted learning facilities, providing interactive programs related to gardening. She is described as a true force of nature, and I would say, serving with her on our Darien Action Committee, she truly is a true force of nature. And she embodies the heart of a green community to improve our environment. Through each of these efforts, she has given of herself for the betterment of our community. And for that reason, we would like to honor Kathy Street with a Green Heart of Darien. That's why I told you it gotta be tonight.
There's so many people wearing green.
Kathy, I want you to know that when Sylvia MacGyver wrote this nomination for you, and when she wrote it, she said, I want a green heart of Darien. Well, the jeweler couldn't give me a green heart, but they did give me green lettering on it. So this is for you.
Awesome.
Thank you. You're welcome.
You're welcome to say a few words.
Oh, I don't know. I say words all the time. I just came from our board meeting and we're just always active, and I always say the only reason all these things happen is because of my volunteers. I can't do this alone, and the city, the community is always behind us, and I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate you here for sneaking this in. Not me.
If I could put down everything she said that you did, I'd still be reading it.
Can I get the rest of the garden club members up front with Kathy to take a picture?
When I delivered her green jacket last year, I said, oh man, I need that green jacket. So thank you for obliging me with my green.
Okay, I'm gonna have you hold it like that and go, let's go in the front, Joe, you too, and I'll get the rest of the garden club people.
Good job, Kath. Good job, Kathy.
Thanks, congrats.
I worked with this lady.
Congratulations.
Our sons played soccer together.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Interesting, yeah.
And not just long, it was gonna be too crowded.
She called me, she goes, can we do this in December?
Okay, squeeze it a little bit, okay? Okay,
I want to make myself too obvious by turning around.
okay. Everybody look at me. 1, 2, 3, and I'm gonna do one more. 1, 2, 3. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I tried.
I've worked with you too much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for nominating her.
All right, party time.
Sylvia, could you give this to her?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And this? Thank you.
And by the way, Kathy, the jeweler told me that from now on I can get a red hearted Darien, a blue hearted Darien, any one of the colors. Start the trend.
Green off the list. Good.
All right.
Yeah. So we're doing our different flags, you know.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is, some of you may know, Darien is a very environmentally conscious community, as you can see from this. About a year ago, as members of the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, we had an opportunity to become one of the first municipalities in DuPage County to become what they call EV ready. And we were selected, along with 15 other communities, to go through almost a 1-year process to become what we call EV ready. And I'm going to read the following. This is from Edith Macra from Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. She also works with Argonne on climate. She goes, thank you, Mayor, for your kind words. Likewise, we would have no success with our program if not for the talent and hard work of our member municipalities. Thank you for your leadership. You have much to be proud of in Darien. With the adoption of the text amendments, the updated Darien zoning code, which is on our agenda tonight, the city will meet all requirements to earn the bronze level designation as an EV-ready community. There were 16 municipalities, 11 or 12 actually are receiving a designation, 10 or 11 as bronze, 1 as gold. So we're one of the 11. I hope the City Council votes favorably for these progressive code updates. Dan Gombeck has prepared a comprehensive description of these amendments, which include robust definitions, location and design standards, as well as parking rules that balance constituent needs. Notably, the City of Darien is also codifying installation of EV charging stations for new construction. Dan did extensive research and worked hard to integrate these new policies into Darien's code and present appropriate documentation to our EV readiness team. Dan also created a new permit process for both commercial and residential EV charging installation. All of this material is now available on Darien's new EV readiness webpage. The City of Darien will be recognized as one of 12 municipalities in the first cohort of communities to earn EV-Ready Community designation. While the EV Readiness Program serves only the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus members, we know that this program is the national pioneer in municipal preparedness for transportation electrification. In fact, just this month, a new program called EV Smart will kick off with the aim to build on our model to serve 13 states in the Northeast. Not only did Darien succeed in meeting all the requirements for bronze, Dan Gombick volunteered his time as an expert advisor to our EV Readiness Advisory Committee. To create the program, the EV Readiness Advisory Committee helped us identify and prioritize what it means for a community to be EV ready. Dan shared his expertise in community development, zoning, and permitting to help us craft the EV Readiness Checklist, which is the pathway that every community follows to earn EV-Ready Community designation. We could not have crafted such a thoughtful and robust program without him. We thank you for your tireless enthusiasm and support of the EV Readiness Program, and we welcome all members of the Darien team to join us in our celebration on December 7th in Warrenville, where we will receive our bronze plaque. I asked Dan to do this. This is a executive board member for the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. I wanted Darien to be in the first cohort. And what that meant is a lot of work. And I think you started back in January, and we just finished tonight with the approval of the zoning. And I got the same emails he did. A Zoom meeting today at 2:00. Zoom meeting and those were weekly, sometimes several times a week. And he sat there and he participated in each one of those. And as you can see, he exceeded the workload that some of these other people did. I am extremely proud of our city and the fact that we are listed as a bronze level EV readiness city. And I am extremely thankful that I have a municipal services director, community development director, who spent the time at my request to bring this status, this designation to us. So Dan, thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Mayor.
Any words you'd like to add?
Not sure what to say. Thank you. Really, it's an honor to be recognized as such. The program was just very interesting, and I think what made this so unique was with this cohort, there was divisions with a community development director, a planning director, a building director. And what I had brought to the table was very unique. I've had the opportunity to experience community development, be part of it for my longest career here. Public Works, I was able to be part of that career too. So ever since I've been in Darien, I've taken two roles into one. And to integrate those two roles is such an experience that no one can really understand, because there's always these divisions. Public Works does this, community development does this, and there's nothing in the middle sometime. So again, thank you, and really was a great experience.
Thank you, Dan. All right. Greg, you're going to talk about MuniWeb, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Chestnut Court. For the last 2 years, probably longer, we have worked diligently for the redevelopment of the Chestnut Court Shopping Center. Chestnut Court, as you know, had significant vacancies. They were up to maybe 60% vacancies at one point. We were working or trying to work with the owner at that time, which is Pine Tree Incorporated, and all of our attempts were met with blockage. They blocked a lot of the things we attempted to do. My good news is that about a month and a half ago, we found out that there was a man and a company that was going to purchase the Chestnut Court Shopping Center. His name is Mr. Kumar Bhavanasi. And he met with us about a month ago. And we shared with him, and he came all the way from New Jersey to meet with us. And we shared with him some of our dreams for Chestnut Court Shopping Center. And our dreams matched his dreams. He asked us not to say anything with regard to the redevelopment of Chestnut Court, although that was a real difficult thing to do. But he didn't close. He closed October 30th. And when he closed October 30th, he sent me an email and he said, Mr. Mayor, I would like to come into Darien and I'd like to sit down with you and your team and our architect and our management firm and discuss with you our dream for Chestnut Court. He was in town today. We probably met for an hour and a half, 2 hours. He brought his architect and he brought members of Mid-America's management team. And I have to tell you that we really are on the same page with regard to our development. The city council listed Chestnut Court as key development area number 1.
Yep.
And the city council also passed, when they passed that, they designated Chestnut Court as an area where you would see mixed use.
Yep.
Well, we're going to have a mixed use redevelopment of Chestnut Court. That is one of his ideas. And I can't tell you a lot more because there are certain things that have to be done between now and Christmas. He's going to meet with us again the week before Christmas with regard to the architect. But we laid out today what we would like to see happen. We discussed it. We discussed it with the Mid-America management team. He's got a wonderful, wonderful architect. I think all of us were impressed by that gentleman. We have Alderman Gustafson joined us because that's his ward. And I got to tell you, folks, that Chestnut Court Shopping Center, if all this develops, is truly going to be a gem in the city of Darien. And this gentleman is very open to doing that. He truly believes that he has to spend money in order to make money with this shopping center. So he's not hesitant to work with us and spend the money. Now, that's not saying that we're not going to be asked to do something as well. But I sat there today and I said what I wanted as mayor, and I think I reflected what Mr. Gombeck felt, what Jordan felt, what Brian felt, and what this council feels with regard to that center. And I can tell you, we're going to have a beautiful center if everything comes to reality. So I wanted to share that with you tonight because to me, I'm really excited about this. And when he comes back that week before Christmas, and I think he said it was the week before Christmas, he will have architectural renderings of a center that will have mixed use with housing, primarily 2 to 3 stories or 4 stories with possibly first or second level parking, redevelopment of other sections of the shopping center. I think the council will be excited. I think the public will be excited. And for the first time in probably about 4 or 5 years, we're going to have a shopping center that's really a gem for the people of the city of Darien. So I wanted to share that with you tonight. I don't know if Alderman Gustafson just wants to add anything.
No, this has been something that the city's been working on for quite some time, and I'm extremely impressed with this new owner and stuff. These developments are not new to him. I believe the next closest one, though, was in Indiana and stuff. But he's done this many times over. He's got a great team. He owns a big IT company out in Princeton, New Jersey, and he's really got his act together. And it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
Brian, do you want to add anything at all?
No, I think the timing, though, is impeccable. The Jordan is working on the ordinances now that will actually put into place the comprehensive plan, and that's a big help. You know, we won't wait for the developer to do that as a way to entice development of that center. We're going to most likely come forward with the zoning changes, but it is really exciting. It will be fun to do that.
It's going to be fun.
Dan?
I think it'll be something that's, to your point, a gem. It's,
Yeah.
you know, again, with the concepts that we went through today, I can't wait to start the
Yeah.
construction
Yeah.
aspect of
One
it.
thing most people probably don't know is the corner bank on that
Yeah.
property is not actually Darien. There's a little cutoff of that, so that's part of Woodridge. So we're looking at whatever happens there, that building is probably going to stay there, but the rest of the center, excluding the Pizza Hut, Home Run Inn Pizza,
Home Run
sorry,
Inn.
Pizza, Home Run Inn Pizza, that's their own property that's carved out there too. But again, as the mayor talked with them, they're looking to work with everybody too on the development, so, very nice.
We'll give you more information
Yep.
when they come back to us with actual drawings and stuff. But that, my last thing is, I asked last week in the Darien Direct Connect that if people had pictures of something in Darien that represented fall, the true beauty of fall, to send me pictures. Well, I got 3 pictures. I wish I would have got more, but I got 3 pictures. This is from, and I'm going to post these in the lobby. Barbara Overland sent me this. I believe this is over in the Darien Club area. Alderman Gustafson's wife sent me this. This is Ridgewood Park.
Yep.
And this is from a J. Augustine. And I wanted to share those. If people want to send more, I'm willing to post them in the lobby, but I want to thank the 3 who did. And that concludes my mayor's report. With that, I'll ask Joanne, do we have a city clerk report?
The city offices will be closed on Thursday and Friday this week, November 23rd and 24th, in observance of Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
All right.
Brian, city administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one item. During the work session, you had asked that I briefly touch on the tax levy that's on the agenda this evening for the city council. It's on the consent agenda. Part of the tax levy for many, many years, and I really lost track, if it's somewhere between 12 and 15 years, that the city has maintained the exact same property tax levy based on the previous year's extension. So again, I was looking through some of the records, and I know it was, again, at least 14 years. And the tonight, the same process is on, and that will be exactly what last year's levy was that the city received. Now, most of the levy now goes to the police pension fund, as we all know. We've talked about that. So even this year, the police pension fund obligation will exceed our total property tax, but in lieu of raising any property tax, the city will use other additional or other funds, about $83,000.
90, I thought.
Yeah, right in that ballpark, in order to maintain that, I guess I can call it a tax, property tax freeze on the behalf of the city. Now, as we talked about over and over, and we put out in our last newsletter, or in our survey, your property tax bill is made up of a number of different taxing districts. So if your property tax bill is going up, it's not a reflection of the city's levy, but probably some of the others, whether it's the school, park district, or one of the other entities, or your home value might have gone up if it was reassessed. But in terms of the city tax levy, it will remain the same another year.
Thanks, Brian. Any questions for Mr. Vanna? Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to move to department head information and questions, and Chief Thomas has a report for us. Greg?
Yes, I do. One thing before the getting into the monthly report was that the discussion that the goal setting was around text messaging, and there's been comments from the public before. There's been comments here. So one of the directions at that meeting, the goal setting, was to move forward with text messaging. So we contacted an agency, MuniWeb, and so text messaging will start Wednesday this week. So we'll start the advertisement and the changeover from Twitter to text messaging through MuniWeb beginning Wednesday when they come and set everything up. Just a quick reminder, it is a subscription based, so you have to sign up for it. You have to opt in. We had that before with Nixle. There was only 390 users. We have 2,400 users on Twitter, plus the retweets. So we hope to get everybody moved over and use the text messaging versus Twitter. Like I said, that'll start this Wednesday. We'll get that loaded. Our plan is to have both Twitter and MuniWeb text messaging for through the end of the year. We'll do both. At the end of the year, we will only do MuniWeb for the emergency or urgent type of text notification, and we'll continue to use Twitter for all the other types of notifications and updates and community outreach that we do. We'll continue to do those on Twitter. So that should be up and running Wednesday, and we'll start moving forward on that this week. A couple things in the...
Can I just make one comment on that before we move on? Is that on those text messages too, this is something my mother-in-law, who lives in Indian Head Park, does not get emails, does not get text messages. So my wife has signed herself up to get those for her. So then she can, if there's an alert, she can then call her mom up and let her know what's going on. And I encourage residents, if you have someone living in the city that doesn't have access to these, sign up for them and be able to provide the alerts to them. It's going to be a great program, but we got to get people registered. Sorry, thank you.
No problem. Appreciate it. A couple items that are in the monthly report. One is a conversation about some of the outreach that we do, and we did this last year. And it was kind of late in the game when we started. This year was a little bit better, and that's a program called Faith in Blue. During the 2020s protests and riots, there was a lot of negativity directed towards the police. Some individuals stepped away from the crowd, felt that there was a better means of bringing about positive change. So reading from the Faith in Blue website, it states, the idea is simple but powerful one. The ties that bind officers and residents must be reinforced if we are to build neighborhoods where everyone feels safe and included. Faith-based organizations are key to building these bonds because they are not only the largest community resource in the nation with over 65 million participants weekly, but because they are as diverse as our nation. Moreover, they speak to America's shared conviction that we are all our brothers and sisters keepers. So we had our Faith in Blue event on October 7th at Our Lady of Peace. It was Our Lady of Peace and Marian Bible Church that put it together. It was a very good event. There was a lot of other churches and faith-based organizations that wanted to participate as well, but the timing didn't work out for them to have the event on the 7th, so a lot of people were looking forward to doing it next year. So it was a great event. The sponsors were Model Funeral Home, Darien Lions Club, and the Knights of Columbus, so the appreciation there. Other outreach events included the Darien's Women Club. Deputy Chief Jason Norton met with the Darien Women Club to discuss safety. It was a well-received event. Janice Botker, the organizer of the event, sent a very nice thank you. I won't read all of it because it's kind of funny, but I'll read part of it. You, meaning Deputy Chief Norton, were a big hit at the Darien Women's Club meeting last week. All I've heard is positive feedback on your topics and your presentation style. So went over very well, so that was good to hear. And last, we had another event at the Indian Prairie Public Library. Deputy Chief Norton had presented there as well on November 1st, talking about safety around the holidays, being safe on the internet, being safe, going out shopping, all those different types of things. The next meeting with the at the Indian Prairie Public Library for safety and interaction between the police and the public is December 6th at 10 a.m. At that date, we're going to be talking about self-protection. And one of our self-defense tactics instructors, Matt Rundell, is scheduled to do the presentation that day. We've been working with Margarita Harris at the Indian Prairie public library, and she's been awesome to work with and opening up the doors and getting things scheduled. So I didn't go through a lot of stuff on the statistical things in the monthly report. Overall crime's down. That's a good thing to see. One last item. In the last page of that monthly report is concerns, and I got a nice email from Alderman Legansky, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and he had a problem that was brought to him by a constituent about speeding in the neighborhood and ways to fixing that problem, which to me was a great opportunity to talk about two issues. One is how we track concerns. So when somebody has an issue in the public and want the police interaction to help fix that problem, we have a software called Frontline, and we put those concerns on there, and then we document them and show them in the monthly report. Because he had asked me to do that, I took an opportunity to look at that, and so there's some big different examples. So we had one location that the officers went there on several occasions and took action. In fact, it took a lot of action. They were making one stop and issuing a ticket every 12 minutes. So they were pretty busy there. Contrast that with other locations where we sat there 14 occasions for over 30 minutes each and wrote 0 tickets, made 0 stops. So it's a lot about perception of what people think that is going on and what actually is happening, or comments like it happens all the time and without narrowly focused. Really difficult to deal with that, because then we'll just set up and we'll go there and we'll be there at the wrong date or day of the week, time of day, and those type of things, and things don't get resolved, and then people are just more frustrated. So hats off to Alderman Glansky. He went back and talked to the person. The other part was how we resolve those things, and we have a program called, or a philosophy called problem-oriented policing, and that's not just to go and issue tickets or take the first law enforcement action. It's really to resolve that problem, and that can be resolved in any number of ways. In this particular issue, it was one household that was causing some issues, so it was a knock on the door and a discussion versus, lying in wait and waiting for write a ticket, which doesn't always fix the problem. So appreciate that again. So that's the end of my report, unless there's any comments or questions or concerns.
Any questions for the chief? Okay, any questions for Mr. Gombeck? Okay, if none, that we move on to our treasurer's report. Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. We're asking for city council approval of the expenditure list dated November 20th, 2023. The top of that list has 5 funds with expenses totaling $1,085,914.68. And we're also asking for approval of the payroll dated 11/16/23 in the total amount of $445,939.
Motion to approve, Alderman Shower, seconded by Alderman Kenny. Any questions or comments? If none, the roll.
Shower.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Legansky.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
Gustafson.
Aye.
Stompanato.
Aye.
7 ayes.
The warrant's been approved. Now we'll go to the monthly report. Brian?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The monthly report for October 31st, 2023, that report includes both revenues and expenses in the current month and also the year-to-date, and that affects the fund balance in each of the funds. So I will read those. The general fund, after revenues and expenses, has a current fund balance of $6,071,387. In the water fund, the current modified cash balance is $4,296,627. The motor fuel tax current fund balance is $1,542,039. The water depreciation fund current fund balance is $618,319, and the capital improvement fund current fund balance is $17,263,122. And that is our biggest current fund balance in our capital improvements fund. That goes to all the, primarily the neighborhood improvements, but it's larger because we do plan out capital improvements over a 3-year period. So we try to keep that funded so there is consistency in 3 years going out in capital projects. Dan maintains a number of logs on different projects, looking out even longer than that, like our road program over 10 or 12 years. So we look at that long term, but we do try to keep the funding for at least 3 years in that fund.
Any questions for Brian? If none, we move on to standing committee reports. Do any of the chairs have information they want to share? Alderman Belzak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Municipal Services Committee had a meeting earlier today in which we approved the last 4 minutes of the last 4 municipal services meetings. The next one is scheduled for December 27 in council chambers at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Mary?
The next Administrative Finance Committee meeting will be on Monday, December 4th at 6 p.m. in the upstairs conference room.
Thank you. Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The police committee meeting that was scheduled for tonight was canceled due to a lack of agenda items. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, December 18th, 2023, 6 p.m. across the parking lot in the police training room, pending agenda items.
And then I'd just like to announce the Darien Action Committee met on Saturday, November 11th, excuse me, and they basically planned out our Darien Historical Society tree lighting ceremony, which will take place on Sunday, December 3rd, from 1 o'clock in the afternoon till 4. There will be story time for children. Santa will arrive via the Darien Woodridge Fire Department. Not many Santas arrive but ours does. Hot chocolate. The Lions Club will be cooking hot dogs. And it'll be a fun afternoon. We're going to have Christmas carolers, and of course, we're all going to sing It's Christmas Time in Darien, and if you've never heard that, that's a great song. And the tree lighting will take place at 4 p.m. So if you get a chance, Sunday, December 3rd is our annual tree lighting ceremony. And with that, we move to questions and comments, agenda related. And again, if you're here for the quad home discussion, I would ask that you wait till we get to that item on our agenda. We go to old business. There being none, we go to consent agenda, and I will read these items. Item A, consideration of a motion to approve an ordinance levying taxes for general and special corporate purposes for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of May 2023 and ending on the 30th day of April 2024 for the city of Darien, Illinois. Item B, consideration of a motion to approve an ordinance for the levy and assessment of taxes for the fiscal year beginning on the first day of May 2023 and ending on the 30th day of April 2024 in and for the city of Darien, the special service area known as Terra Hill. 3 items from our new business were moved to the consent agenda, and I will read those as follows. Consideration of a motion to approve an ordinance amending Title 5A, zoning regulations of the city of Darien, PZC 2023-07, electric vehicles charging stations. The next item, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution to enter into an engineering agreement with Christopher B. Burke Engineering for the 2024 street maintenance program. Contract bid booklet in an amount not to exceed $36,350. And finally, the last item, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an engineering agreement with Christopher B. Burke Engineering for pavement corings for the proposed 2024 street maintenance program in an amount not to exceed $10,000. Motion to approve. Alderman Belzak, second by Alderman Stompanato, and the roll.
Belzak.
Aye.
Stompanato.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
Gustafson.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Legansky.
Aye.
7 ayes.
That takes us to our last new business item, our only new business item. And for that, I'm going to ask Mr. Yonke and Mr. Dombeck to make their presentation along with the petitioners, if that's part of it. Jordan?
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Do you want to plug in? Before I get to some summary comments on this case, I do want to point out a few public comments came in today, so I put them next to each of your chairs for the record. So I believe most people have heard this, but for people at home and also people who haven't heard it, this is a rezone request, preliminary PUD request, preliminary plat of subdivision, along with waivers and variances that are depicted in the packet. In a general sense, I guess, there's 3 parcels existing right now, 2941, 2963, 2985 off of 87th Street. The total acreage for the petition site, or the 3 parcels, is 7.34 acres. What the petitioner is proposing is to rezone from the R1 single-family district to the R3 multifamily district. And the reason for that rezone request is the proposal includes 2-family dwellings or duplexes, which are not permitted in the R1 or R2 district zoning ordinance for the city of Darien. With the proposal, the preliminary plat has 17 lots with 34 total dwelling units. So basically 2 units per lot. And as you can see on the picture and in the packet, the proposal is to have Woodland Lane, proposed public road, serve the petition site with 2 ingress-egress off of 87th Street. The eastern ingress-egress would be right in, right out, and the western would be full access. This case did appear in front of Plan Commission. It was on October 18th, and the Plan Commission did recommend favorable approval for the case with a number of conditions that are listed in the packet. And then the case did appear in front of Municipal Services on November 1st at their special meeting. One thing I should call out, because it's a little bit confusing with the way the packet had to be written and the conditions of approval. One of the topics of conversation at the Plan Commission was the structures abutting the properties to the east and the west of the petition site. Through conversation at Planning and Zoning, they did recommend a condition to shift the proposed structures 5 feet inward. So basically 5 feet towards Woodland Lane. And these would be the structures that directly abut the property to the east and the west. Municipal Services upheld the recommendation on November 1st. The only tweak to the conditions of approval was that they recommended that condition or the shifting of those structures be 2 feet instead of 5 feet. So that's the difference from Municipal Services Committee meeting. That being said, I mean, there's a litany or a long list of attachments in the packet, including traffic memo, review comments from Christopher Burke, Fire District, our traffic consultant, and also the public comment and petition that was submitted are in the packet as well. With that, I know the petitioner has a presentation tonight, but I'll let Dan maybe say a few things.
Thank you, Jordan. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, residents at the City Hall here and at home. 2 things. One, to follow up from November 1st with a follow-up from the Municipal Services Committee. That was in regards to the stormwater and how it currently flows. We've asked Steve from V3 Engineering to confirm that, and basically there is what's referred to as an overland flow route. There's 2 different types of flow routes. The first route is your conventional storm, where you get some drizzling, nothing really intense. There's a storm water system on 87th Street. I know we're trying to get the atlas to determine where that goes at this point, but the overland flow route is really what's the most important, critical item here. From the area on 87th Street, fronting the proposed development, the water flows towards the east. From Lamont Road at 87th, it flows back to the west. Right at the second property of what's referred to as the Bogers property there, that water flows back to the south. So again, there's been this conversation of where water exactly flows. So the overland flow route is established and does flow to the south from 87th Street to the Hillcrest or Woodcrest, excuse me. Woodcrest. To Woodcrest, there's a pond that's adjacent to one of the adjacent properties of the proposed development. Also, existing storm water from the existing property does flow to that location to the south, as well as on Hillcrest, it flows back to the east and also has water from Hillcrest back into that pond area and down the ditch. So again, that was just a brief follow-up. The second thing was I wanted to touch base on 87th Street. So everyone knows 87th Street is not part of the city of Darien's roadway system. It is a DuPage County, what they refer to, a highway. All their roadways are basically of this caliber are considered highways. In conjunction with that, there's no, the engineer has reached out to DuPage County for a preliminary thought process. There's no traffic control light that would be required for this development due to the trip generations. So the actual treatment to this, and this request was also brought up by Eric, was whether or not there's an opportunity for a de-acceleration lane and an acceleration lane to the full access pathway into the subdivision. So one's a full access, the other one is a right in and a right out. I'm referring to the full access where the city will request of DuPage County to consider that. Whether or not they consider it, whether or not they mandate it, it's not the city's function based on their highway system. And the actual stormwater. I want to touch base on the stormwater for a minute. The stormwater for this subdivision is planned to be on the furthest south end. So what will happen is all the water gets captured for this lot prior to it being released to where it's going right now. We, the city, are referred to as a partial waiver community. What does that mean? That basically means that DuPage County will review the stormwater and their submittal per the DuPage County Stormwater Ordinance to also review whether or not there's any additional wetland treatment that will be required, and what's referred to as BMP's best management practices that will be put into play for the actual detention area. So just wanted to clarify some of the notes from Municipal Services Committee meeting. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, we didn't have the presenter presenting anything. They do have all their information, so if the city council wants to oblige them, by all means.
Do you guys have any questions of the petitioner? Mary?
Yes, why, when the Municipal Planning and Zoning Committee requested that the shift be 5 feet towards Woodland Lane, did you come up with 2 feet?
Shifting it 5 feet more towards
Can you step up to the mic, please?
Sorry. James Healy, Healy, of Goldstein, Gratzky, Russian, Nemec, and Hoff, the attorneys for the developer. By shifting it 5 feet, the full 5 feet, we felt that it was going to be a problem with line of sight for people walking down a sidewalk, on driveways, things of that nature. We felt that the 2 feet was the maximum we felt the most comfortable with after working with our engineers and everybody else, that it gave additional land in the back and also gave the line of sight for the driveways and for everything else. Is there anything, Steve, you want to add to that?
Yeah, that was the big thing, is that if we push the units closer into the main access drive, we're pinching down that front setback, so any resident who wishes to have a guest or somebody park in their driveway, then that vehicle, depending on the size, would likely overhang on the sidewalk and impede pedestrian traffic through the subdivision. So we felt that the 2 foot was a good compromise.
And what about with the street being more narrow, will people be able to park on the street And traffic, cars
Yes,
still
we
get
were,
by?
we're not changing the right-of-way width of the street itself. It was, our just concern was with vehicles parking in driveways.
Okay, but so if say someone's having a party, can people park on both sides of the street and a car still get by?
Yes.
So, and you didn't, because it wasn't all the lots that the municipal, planning and zoning requested the 5 feet difference. It was the ones bordering the residents, the Darien residents on both sides.
I don't think there's Darien on both sides.
Well, I'm sorry, at least on the east side.
Yeah, the Darien residents are on the east side, Woodridge is
Well,
on the left.
The residents, the homes,
residents.
the existing homes
Yeah.
that are going to stay there.
Yeah, what it was to do is give them just a little bit more ability for us to then put in more buffering and more vegetation and things of that nature on the property lines to keep the houses, separated and give some privacy.
So by doing it only 2 feet, are you still able to do that buffering and that additional plantings and
Yes,
fencing
there
and all
already
that?
was a backyard. It was just giving
Well,
it
it's a
a
small
little more.
backyard. It's a really small backyard.
Right, but these are also for people who are mostly, we're expecting it to be people who are 55 plus who are moving out of the two-story homes.
Oh, I'm talking about the backyard and adjacent property that's already there, more so. People who buy the home are gonna know what they're buying, because it's like that, they're gonna spend that kind of money, they're gonna see what it's gonna be like. So it's a known for them. It's the people that are already there that will have to now modify their home because now there's this property right on top of their home, so.
So is there enough room for vegetation, staff? And we also believe that there is more than enough for vegetation to help, block, to privatize it. Here's our landscaper.
I'm Katrina Laughlin with Laughlin Design Group. I'm the landscape architect, and even in the original site plan we were working with, where we didn't have that additional 2 feet, we were still able to provide adequate screening. We also have some elevation change that we can play with, really to our advantage, to help create more buffer, especially to the property to the east, where we have a very, very small setback on their property. We're able to get a layering of shrub material and some canopy trees. So that's the key to screening with planting, is that layering effect of some foreground and then some height, and working with that. So we have that, and I was excited to get 2 more feet, quite frankly, to work with. So I am very confident we will be able to do a nice property definition along the property lines and provide screening for everyone concerned, the incoming residents as well as the existing.
And you would see that in the final drawings also.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Once we do the finals.
And then what about how close, especially 11, 12, and 17 are, since one is set back a little further, to 87th Street?
We are still able to do a really nice evergreen screening and create separation. Again, we also have some elevation change to work with there because 87th sits lower than our site. So we have that additional height differential that we get to play with some evergreen material and ornamentals. So again, we're using that layering of the larger trees as well as the lower shrub material to create some good screening for the new residents coming in.
When we were at planning and zoning, you gave us the how much?
Distances?
The distance. I thought it was like 35
Yeah, I
feet.
think from the structure to the back of curb, I think it's about 35 feet.
So there's 35 feet from 87th to the homes. Okay.
From the back of curb of 87th to the buildings, yes.
Okay.
The actual right of way to the building is less than that, but we have a nice setback with the parkway.
And then I know there's an existing retaining wall that already resides between the property owner on the east and 11. So will there be changes made to that, or?
I believe that is going to be rebuilt, is it not? Reconstructed?
There'll be a new retaining wall along that east property line.
And will there be, I know there's a lot of shrubbery, there's a lot of talk of plantings. Will there be, what type of fencing will exist at all for the home owners inside and outside, the inner loop and the outer loop? Will there be any fencing?
Fencing is not allowed within the development itself. So folks will not be putting fences up. We will not have a perimeter fence. We will do all of the screening and definition of the properties and the lots with plant material. So again, we'll do that layering of shrub material and then some shade trees for height, canopy trees for height.
Okay, that's it for me for right now.
While you're up there, the landscaping where you're going to drive out and pull out onto 87th Street.
Yeah.
What is that landscape going to consist of? I mean, is it going to be, because the key is going to be visibility there.
Absolutely, and that is, honestly, is one of my biggest pet peeves. There's nothing worse than trying to pull out and not being able to have a clear and safe line of sight. We have the advantage here of, as Steve was mentioning, we're 35 feet from the building to the back of curb. If you look at this this illustrative image, you can see how much space there is from the back of curb to where we started our rendering, which is our actual lot. So a vehicle that would be pulling out would be beyond our actual lot line, and they would have just the clear right-of-way as far as visibility. So to answer your question, through the process, the construction process, that area will be, cleaned up as part of the construction, and we have no intention of planting more trees or shrubs or plant material within that space. Yeah, we would use a safe site triangle, honestly greater than the 12 feet that a lot of plans say is safe. I don't think so. I think we're going to keep that open for sure.
County has strict requirements on line of sight.
Yeah.
So they will be watching it quite closely. Also, that the area after you get past the first 15 feet, which is our lot line, you then have another 20 feet plus to the back of curb, which is all mowed lawn in that area. So you would have the perfect sight lines down the edges.
Yeah, because when you're heading east on 87th Street, the elevation's actually rising.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay? And frankly, I'll be honest, I almost got hit there when I pulled out one of these driveways because the cars that are coming up over that hill are coming very fast. Okay? And so it's going to be, visibility is going to be critical because it's going to be a very dangerous intersection, is my concern of that.
And the county will make very specific requirements, and we will follow all the requirements that the county DOT asks us to.
Alderman Legansky, you had a
Yes,
question?
thank you, Mayor. I kind of have questions for a few different people, but Jordan, from reading all the emails and visiting with residents, it seems like there's, flooding concerns, the congestion, the traffic, there's a lot going on in that development. So my question, Jordan, is do we have like requirements for the city for like density or something that that all this is within what we that we allow? I'm assuming it is, but
so there'd be
yeah.
in this zone that they're proposing, it would
Right.
be 7 units per gross residential acre. The proposal is 4.63.
Okay.
So it's under.
It's under
Yeah.
that requirement that we have.
Correct. Otherwise, they would have to ask for a waiver or variance.
For that, okay. So, have we had developments like this in other parts of Darien where we've had these kind of waivers and?
Yeah,
'Cause I'm kind of like the new kid on the block, so I don't have a lot of experience, so I'm curious for that.
Yeah, I mean, not all of them are perfectly interchangeable, but we looked at Rolling Knolls is probably most similar in terms of the layout. While that was single-family detached, there were a number of waivers and variances, or I should say variances to lot size. That was 26 total units on roughly 7 acres. This would be 34 units. Darien Path was another one that comes to mind, where there was a number of waivers and variances for that. That was 11 total units on 2 acres. And then Water Tower Court, while that's more or I guess it's older approval, let's say that. I believe late 80s to the 90s, but it's up the road, 87th Street, and then you take Meadow Lane. We did rough math on that. That's about 140 units over 25 acres. So that's about 5 units per gross residential
Okay,
acre.
thank you. And then that first one you mentioned, it's a U shape like this as well, correct?
Rolling nose.
Rolling
yeah.
nose,
With,
right.
is it the same road
Yeah,
width?
the road width, I think this is back to Mary's point, the road width is exactly the same,
Yeah.
26 and back-to-back curb. I think it was gonna be 27.
27.
Yeah, 27 or 28 back and curb. So it's within, it's basically a replica of Rolling Knolls.
For Rolling Nose, we actually had 14 or 15 variances that we had to approve because of lot
Really?
size.
Okay. And then, so I know I read one email about snow plowing and where do you put the snow? I mean, so you deal with something like this currently in that development?
While that's true, you know, we have different operations, and in the operations will include identifying where are the open portions. I know there's part of, on this particular development, there's a 20-foot easement for the sanitary, so there's a location. There's some other locations that front the actual bubbles, I should say, half eyebrows. So most of the snow goes in the parkway. Occasionally, and this is for throughout the city of Darien, we will haul snow out as required, just due to drifting, safety concerns, blind corners, so on and so forth.
Okay. And then, who's the civil engineer? I have some, can you, and your name again was?
Steve.
Steve. Nice to meet you, Steve. In my previous life, I worked on some projects where, we just, took a green space and had to build a big warehouse. So I know a little bit about it, but probably enough just to be dangerous. And I know there's a lot of, concerns about flooding here, which is, to me, my number one issue here. So what's the elevation change from 87th Street going south?
It varies along the south property line, so it's about from 87th Street to the southeast property line. It's about 20 to 25 feet, and to the southwest property line, it's about 15 feet. So
Okay.
the grade drop is dropping to the southeast, where that existing wetland is, just off the property, which is where all the existing stormwater goes today. So it all flows south and then
Okay.
east.
So now with that site, do you feel that all the earth can just be moved around? Or are you gonna have to bring earth in or take earth out? I mean, what's your gut on that?
Yeah, we've done some preliminary estimates. I mean, from a clay standpoint, the clay roughly balances out for the site. I mean, for a site where we're going to be adding additional structures and pavements, I mean, in today's world, it's pretty much impossible to balance topsoil out for a site. We'll retain as much topsoil on site as we can, so there will be some export of the existing topsoil, but the clay will remain and be reshaped for our development purposes.
Okay. The, this lift station, I know, why is that needed if once it's leveled off or whatever? Again,
It's with where the nearest sanitary sewer connection point is relative to our development. So that's just to the northeast at Meadow Lane. Just north of 87th Street is the nearest sanitary manhole we can
going north.
connect into. So by elevation, we can't slope there by gravity and meet all the requirements in terms of depth for frost and have enough slope so that the pipes don't clog. So we can't get a gravity sewer system to work out from our development just with where the proximity of that nearest tie-in point is. So a lift station was
Is that
required.
common? Is it, I mean, are they expensive to maintain? Are they reliable? I'm just,
Yeah, I mean, they're reliable. I mean, we'll work with the city and DuPage County to make sure it meets all their requirements in terms of emergency backup power, to make sure if there's a power outage that it's self-sustaining.
okay, so now this retention pond, of course, was all calculated based upon what's going in here, right? So
Yes.
I know about FARs and that ratio calculation and all that stuff to determine the size of this pond, correct?
Yes.
So that's considering sidewalks, everything that might happen here in the future as well,
Yep,
right?
so it accounts for all the proposed impervious surfaces within the property, the relative grade, the slope. And it's all based on DuPage County requirements, which is in the Cook County and Chicago and the surrounding counties. DuPage County is the most restrictive in terms of allowable release rate, so more than Cook County or Kane County or Will County. So it's extremely restrictive in terms of what we can release off-site. So all of the stormwater will be collected in storm sewers within the roadway. There's storm sewers in all the rear yards that'll pipe everything to the pond, where it'll be retained for up to 3 to 4 days and then slowly released back to the existing wetland to the southeast.
Right. Now, because you've got that wetland even further south, and then to the east, you've got a natural pond that's there. So that's all being taken into consideration with the amount of water that's going to have to be released out there, because you've already
Yes.
got the wetland and the pond. So that's all being calculated.
Yes, and so yeah, our proposed pond will provide about 3.4 acre feet of additional storage that doesn't exist today. So visually, if you took 1 acre of land and put roughly 3.5 feet of water on top of it, that's about how much water fits
Okay.
within that pond.
And I know our engineer Burke said that there's a geotechnical report that needs to be done. That's not done, correct?
That hasn't been done yet, but that will be done as part
Right.
of the final design.
And then they said that because there could be shallow groundwater there. And then, so that could change the size of this pond as well, if in fact that is there, because I would think that, the soil can absorb it if that's there as
Yeah,
much.
the bigger concern there is just where the relative groundwater table is, to make sure that water wouldn't be, we wouldn't be setting this pond below the groundwater table elevation, and then you'd have natural groundwater infiltrating into the basin. So I believe that was their concern there. But once we get the final reports, that'll be validated.
Would you be limited on how deep you can go with a pond because that shallow water might be there?
That's one consideration, and then the also consideration with depth is it affects your allowable release rate. So within how the pond works is it all gets piped to a manhole which has a restrictor in it. So there's a small hole that controls the flow. So the more water you stack on top of that, the smaller that restrictor becomes, and then it becomes an issue with drawdown on the pond that for those lower depths, the flow rate is impeded, and then your retention time increases, which then, if that happens, it could kill all the landscaping within.
So you feel this is more than adequate?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's all I had for the civil side. Why is 11 closer to the road than 1? Is that because of the lift station where it's going to be?
Yeah, that's correct. Because there's the extra space on that east side for the lift station.
Because the sewer goes that way.
Yep, because the sewer goes that way. And so instead of replicating that same offset on the west side, we felt we'd provide more buffer from 87th Street.
And then that right turn only coming out on the east side, is that again because of safety concerns?
Yeah,
of 87th
so
Street?
yeah, so if you look at the aerial, you can kind of see it there in the right. You start with where that driveway is located. You start getting into the approach for that left-hand turn lane at Meadow Lane. So to prevent people from crossing across that left-hand turn lane, we decided it would be
Right. I know. I got to tell you, where I used to work, across the street from me was one of those, and people would always go around it and make a left. I mean, it's there for visual, but does that even make it less safe if somebody does that? I'm curious, because it's there, but that doesn't mean a person can't make a right and then go around it and still make a left.
Yeah, you're always going to have somebody who
Break the
doesn't
law.
breaks the law and
yeah.
doesn't follow the rules. But we
Yeah.
can, put in signage, and we're planning on installing, a pork chop island to help force people to turn right. So we'll do everything within our power that we can to force that.
But if we're still going to do all that landscaping to open that up, why would it still have to be restricted to only go right?
It's just so we're not conflicting with that left-hand turn lane at Meadow Lane.
Thank you. I think my
Right.
questions have been
That's
answered. Thank you.
Okay.
Mary?
Can I ask you something too while you're up there? So with the sanitary manhole and everything going across to Meadow Lane, would that have any impact on the residents over in that community in Farmingdale Village?
We don't believe so. The amount of sanitary discharge that would be coming from this development would be pretty minimal. But as far as the final design and permitting, we'll work with the city and DuPage County.
And is there any conversation with DuPage County about slowing the speed along 87th Street that would, slow down traffic? For instance, once you cross over Lamont Road, past the fire station, heading towards my home, the speed limit drops to 25 miles an hour. So would there be any possibility of, for safety reasons, the speed dropping as you approach that turn in and turn out?
It's something we can approach with DuPage County, but as far as from our development, I mean, we're asking them for review of our access. So the speed limit on 87th Street is somewhat outside of our control.
Yeah, because it's 40 miles an hour. That's pretty fast. And people go 50 because they think they can.
Thank
The county is always open, the Transportation Committee of the county is always open to hearing from staff as to any recommendations.
But that hasn't been asked yet. That question hasn't been asked yet. I know a
Not the
traffic
reduction.
light was entertained, but, I mean, that was an obvious going to be no, because there's a traffic light not that far down the road.
Right.
But the speed limit has not been asked.
So that has not been broached.
I think that's all I have from him right now.
Anyone else?
I've got one quick one. Go ahead.
I'm looking at, because we talked about, a few minutes ago regarding parking on both sides of the streets. And you're looking at 27 feet curb to curb. Average car is 6 feet. If you got cars coming both ways, that's only going to give you, about a 3-foot clearance between, if two cars are, one guy's going north, one guy's coming south? Have we thought about that, or will there be only one way, parking on one side of the street or the other? Because I think that's getting, like, Mary had asked earlier about if there's, cars on the street, I think that's gonna be pretty tight.
And what happens if the fire department's got
And
to
if
come
the
through?
fire department's gotta come in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can certainly review that with staff.
We're open up to any recommendation by staff on that.
And to speak to your point, Alderman Kenny, that's what we did at Rolling Knolls. If I'm not mistaken, there's signage on the one side of the road for no parking. Want to make sure I'm not misinterpreting that, because there's a sidewalk only on one side of that subdivision. So again, but yeah, that's something we looked at before. As far as Darien Pathway, we did something similar there, only parking on one side, to your point, for emergency vehicles. So we will look at that. And, one more real quick feedback, if I may, Mr. Mayor. I know that Alderman Sullivan asked in respect to the fence on top of or adjacent to the retaining wall. When staff looks at this and reviews it, that's not to say that we're not going to come back and recommend a fence due to the grade drop or how it's designed. So again, while the architect maybe did say that no fences will be put in place, staff will make a recommendation as a safety recommendation or condition for that retaining wall. So again, I just want to clarify that, we will have that opportunity to comment and review safety conditions, which we'll bring back to the developer.
And I only got one last question, Dan, if you maybe geared towards you. In the packet, a lot of residents were talking about the 12-inch pipe being an issue for flooding. What do we, has that been an issue before? Has that been brought up to the city Darien before, or was it just now during this project that was brought up?
As far as the 12-inch pipe, I'm sorry,
There's a talk about a 12-inch pipe inside the land there. That's it helps cause flooding. I'm just reading off what I grabbed off my packet. I'm asking a question.
Alderman Kenny, where are you talking about, where that's at?
is that existing then?
I'm pretty sure it's existing. I thought I made a note on it. Keep going, I'll find it, I'll.
Can I ask a question while Alderman Kenny is looking? So we talked earlier, you were talking about the detention and retention pond at the back, and then once a couple days goes by, the water flows off into the existing ponds, wetlands, and I've seen that space at the back, and there are neighbors of unincorporated land, but they're still our neighbors. Would those ponds be able to hold, because they can get pretty high. Would they be able to hold this new water? Are you saying there's going to be less water coming off the land that would currently then versus what's coming off now into those ponds?
Yeah, over that 3-day span, it'd be a significant reduction in the speed at which that water is released from the property. So,
Well, but is it still going to be the same amount of water? I mean, speed's one thing, but like quantity, we're talking about quantity, even though it might be a slow drip, it's still going to get there. So the quantity of water going into the ponds behind.
Could be more, with more concrete.
I don't have the numbers
Okay.
in front of me right now, so I can't speak exactly to that, but
Isn't that more of a general question, though? I mean, I know speed is important, but the amount, that's the calculation that they would ultimately do, correct?
They have to provide what's referred to as a water study. Okay, that water study is based on a 100-year rain event flow. And Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are still based on 100-year rain events, correct?
a 100-year rain event for the newly adopted Bulletin 75, which was just published in the last couple years by the Illinois State Water Survey. So was just updated, I believe, about 3 years ago, and it's been adopted by all the counties. So there's been a significant increase in the rainfall depths and rainfall intensities that we use to design these ponds now versus just a couple years ago. So it's been roughly a 15 to 20% increase in volume versus what we would have provided had we permitted this 3 to 4 years ago. So we are using the most restrictive data that's available, that's been published by the state and adopted by the county.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that the water, the amounts of water are studied on 30-year events for the amount of water that's been precipitated. So while that's taken into account, back to your question, Mary, is all the water will be killed. Let's say we have an intense rain event. We've seen intense rain events. So all of that rain is captured through the storm sewers and into this detention facility. So that surge of water that's going there now will not be going there immediately. It will be released over, and the release rate, to your point, a drip versus a full faucet, will be released to where it's currently going over a 3-day, depending on the intense rain event, it may be 2 days, it may be up to 4 days. Again, so that's just to clarify or help clarify that question for you.
Right now, in an intense rain event, the rain just sheets off the property to the south. DuPage County has the most restrictive ordinance, not only in the state of Illinois, but probably the most restrictive in the nation. It is also the only county in the nation that is allowed by the Army Corps of Engineers to actually issue permits, because of the fact that the staff over at the county are the most qualified people out there. All this will have to be approved by DuPage County in order for it to go in. And what you're going to see is, what a lot of developers have seen over the years, is that they can build less and less in DuPage because of the fact that these ordinances are so restrictive. When you look at the map that CMAP just presented a few months ago, I served on CMAP for 4 years until this last June. They showed maps of the metropolitan area, and they showed the darker the blue, the worst. And what you saw were all these dark blue areas, blah, blah, blah. But then you came to DuPage County, and DuPage County was this much lighter blue. It had some areas of a little bit darker blue, like your flag, and things of that nature. But the reason for that was the nearly $1 billion that DuPage County, the Forest Preserve, the cities like Darien have all pumped into stormwater to keep it from flooding. And it's very hard for people to understand that there will actually be less water in a 100-year event sheeting off immediately into those ponds, into that swamp area, as one lady keeps calling it. It'll actually go slower into that property, so actually will cause less flooding in the initial sheeting action of the rain. It's very hard for people to understand, but that's why DuPage County and all the cities in DuPage County have a much better average now on how our stormwater is handled. That is because of all these ordinances.
I have a question. And my question is, if DuPage County is as strict as it is, why hasn't DuPage County fixed the problem that these people currently have? I mean, that's a DuPage County problem.
I actually agree. I actually, it's my understanding that when they purchased Oldfield Oaks, that they actually had talked about trying to purchase more of the properties in there to, quite frankly, demolish the houses and turn it into wetlands, because it is a swamp, as several people keep calling it. And I think that's something that the city may actually suggest to the county and to the Forest Preserve, that these are lands that should be purchased and return more to nature over time. Again, it's not saying you're going to get rid of the people immediately. The Forest Preserve over years in the county have given people life estates so that they can live on the property for their entire life. And then at the end of it, that it turns over. Because remember, wetlands and forest preserves and things of that nature are forever. And that's why they can take that longer term look. But I think that's something that you may want to recommend to your county board members, that they start taking a look at, and also your Forest Preserve member.
Well, I know that we'll have people come to the microphone that will talk about flooding in their area. And it came up at planning and zoning. And one of the commissioners made the comment, look at your tax bill. Who are you paying taxes to? You're paying taxes to DuPage County, not to Darien. DuPage County has a responsibility to fix that problem.
Oh, I agree.
And, I empathize with them. I believe that we're not going to put, if anything, this is going to slow down the amount of water that's going to go back there. So it's going to be better for them, but they still have an issue back there.
But it's very hard for a lot of people to understand that actually when you put something like this in, it's actually going to make it better up to the 100-year flood, because of the fact that you're retaining those waters and releasing it much slower over time.
Yep.
But I think that,
it's all about delaying when that peak hits, instead of when you get a really high intensity rain event. That rain is concentrated over a few hour period, and so instead of that concentrated rainfall hitting all at once, the release is slowly spread out over a few day period, which will help then offset the flooding, because it delays when that peak hits in terms of runoff from the property.
So I found my little number, and I apologize, okay? Okay. Miss Skilava in her statement stated that the proposal is nice, but that those who live behind the proposal will be flooded. She stated from 2019 that everything has overflowed due to a tiny 12-inch pipe. 12-foot pipe. She, for, culvert. She first stated the city needs to look at that a little further. So I'm going to ask that question. I'm going to ask that question again. Is that culvert pipe that an issue, and is that what the mayor is talking about right now?
Where's the culvert at?
Dude, I'm just looking at her. The same packet.
I believe it's under that road that's right there. I can't think of the name of the road right now.
Woodcrest.
Woodcrest, okay.
Woodcrest?
If that's on Woodcrest, number one, the condition of that culvert, when I say condition, is it deteriorated? Is it full of gunk that nobody has cleaned out? If that's the case, that's the first problem. The second problem becomes, what's going on downstream within those ditches? The city of Darien, for example, had the same concerns within the northeast quadrant of town, where we came through and redid all those ditches, because culverts over time will accumulate the sediments off the roadways and lack of maintenance. The ditches, if those ditches haven't been touched in, I'll call it 50 years, and not maintained, that's another problem in itself, because the grade of water needs to flow downward. So to your answer, hopefully I've answered that.
And that should be something that the county and the township should be looking at.
So let me ask a question. Should we have this problem fixed before you guys build anything on it?
Yes.
We're not, it's not our responsibility.
I understand that, but
We have the county.
We're going to build something that's actually going to help them,
Yeah,
not hurt
this
them.
development is
It's gonna help them.
As difficult it is for people in Blackaby to understand, when you're building these things and you're putting in these retention ponds like Steve had talked about, and as the county has insisted upon, making it the strongest in the nation, you're actually doing a service. You're actually reducing the amount of flow into those ponds below during the high rain things. I think they should be getting the culverts cleaned out and stuff like that. But again, that's nothing that's going to be caused directly by this development itself, because that's over to the east on Lamont Road.
Dan, as a comparison, because the developer's talking about their particular stormwater and their particular land, could you just talk a minute how this applies to all of our other developments, even Rolling Knolls? You know, that was probably the same concept. I think there was some concerns, I don't know how many, but of flooding and rainwater. But that's another example how at least what this developer is talking about was part of Rolling Knolls and all the other subdivisions.
Matter of fact, during that time period, when Rolling Knolls was being built, there was a group of residents that backed up the subdivision back to the east as well as to the west. The concerns there were, and they were valid concerns, that water was flowing into their backyards from what was then the undeveloped lands. We had met with residents. Matter of fact, I know we met with was a group, and I think the chairman of the Municipal Services Committee at that time also was out there with the residents, and we talked about how the detention is going to work. And the detention was to work where all the water again would be collected, and in this particular case, it was funneled through a storm sewer. I think there was one storm sewer adjacent to one of the properties, went into that storm sewer, and ever since the subdivision was built, the city has not had a call from any of those residents, and we had 3 very vocal residents. On the other side of Manning Road, the sheet flow would come off of that property, go across Manning Road, into a backyard, 2 backyards, one in particular. That problem was eliminated. Was eliminated how? Again, due to the grade variations, because there's a big elevation from west to east. In that case, there were 2 detention facilities that took the water based on the volume, based on the acreage, so on and so forth. So I think that's the most recent classic example, and we could probably go to back years ago where DuPage County put in the retention areas off of Plainfield Road as well as 67th Street with those two county projects.
Thanks, Mary.
I know this question was asked probably at Planning and Zoning about decreasing the number of units in this development so that it wouldn't be so dense, and especially like unit number 11 and unit number 1 encroaching on the neighboring residents. Would that be something, I think it was said no, but I just want to ask it again. Would that ever be something considered to eliminate, even 2 units, 2 buildings, which would be 4 units, and if not 8?
Good evening. My name is Scott Stevens. I'm Vice President of Donovan Homes. I answered that question at the Plan Commission meeting, and I did answer that question no. Our redevelopment of this area on 87th Street is viable with the number of buildings we have. Removing any buildings would not make it a viable project for our company.
Not even 2?
No.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, sir, why?
Well, they're economic reality. And while financial reasons may not be something that everybody wants to hear, it is a reality. This isn't just having more units, more profit. There becomes a point where the infrastructure is we're looping water, we're connecting to DuPage County sewers. There's long runs. To be able to redevelop this property, there's excessive, I should say, per unit costs just for the site improvement work alone. And that makes it such that removing any dwelling units would cause a problem where we would not be able to do the community.
Again, this is the preliminary. We'll be back through the entire process one more time with the finals showing all of the information, and by that time, everything will be approved by the county and everything else, so.
Jordan, do you have any information on impact fees regarding this property? I think that's something that needs to be considered by the council.
Well, they're listed, Mr. Mayor, under our permit fees on our application on the webpage, but basically they list, park, grade school, high school, library, and to the city, so they break them out on our breakdown of it, and this would be applicable, I guess, to attached single-family townhome. So I don't know if you want me to read each one. It goes by 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. I'm not sure how much you want me to read. And to who? The park, grade school, high school?
Let's do all of
It
them.
would be
All
good.
of them? Okay. All right. Yeah, so 2-bedroom townhome, attached single family. Park district would be $1,739. Grade school district would be $268. High school $73. Libraries $93, and the city's $125. 3-bedroom, $2,085 to park, $724 to grade school, $177 to high school, $114 to library, and then same as the last one, $125 to the city.
Okay. Because I think that impact fees are critical when you consider this. I mean, it's going to be 34 units that are going to have maybe 2 people living in that. That's increased shopping within the city of Darien or in the area. There's going to be impact fees, so because you're going to have a lot of seniors or people that don't have children, they're not going to impact the school in terms of more demanding resources, but they're going to, in fact, be receiving tax money that they wouldn't they wouldn't get. That's going to actually help them. And I'm not arguing on what it's going to present the city. I'm talking more of the schools in terms of what the schools are going to get, and they're going to get something fairly nice in terms of an impact fee.
In addition, the increased EAV to that property ongoing will generate more property taxes as long as the districts levy appropriately.
And these are the things that we don't consider, that I think that the council needs to consider. The impact fees and what it's going to mean in terms of the overall appreciation and what it's going to mean for the city as well as the local schools and park district. Are you done asking questions? Because I'd like to open it up to comments by the audience. I
have a question. So, and this is actually probably more for Jordan or Dan. It's R1 correct at this moment. If a developer came in and wanted to put in 16 or 17 R1 buildings, wouldn't we be having the same conversation about water runoff and everything? I mean, it's whether it's R3 or R1, the water's not going to change. Is that correct?
Regardless of what the development is, the water will be captured. Any
development's going to have this issue.
Correct.
So if a developer did come in, and so the issue isn't so much R1 and R3 regarding the water, at least.
Right.
Okay.
One last quick question, Dan. Those acceleration, deceleration lanes that we talked about, who would pay for those? Would the developer or does the county pay for them?
The developer.
Okay.
All right. I think we're ready for comments. If you're in the audience and you'd like to make a comment, we're going to limit you to 3 minutes, which is our policy here at the city in terms of public comment. If somebody goes to the microphone and offers something that you would say, I would ask that you not approach the microphone. I would just soon have as many people with different ideas or concerns come to the microphone and plead their case. So who would like to come forward first? You don't need to put your address down. You just need to give us your name.
Total or each?
Pardon me?
Each person.
Each person. 3 minutes per person. And we, just your name.
My name is Sydney. There has been a lot of comments of we don't have the numbers, we don't believe, hopefully, from the developers, which is a bit worrisome. And this is the ideal case scenario, right? This is the best. This is what we have planned, but is this the reality? Is the shrubbery really going to, I live on the east side of the easement or of the proposed plan. am I going to be able to use my remote and turn Unit 10's TV off? I will love thy neighbor. I would love to love thy neighbor from 30 feet away instead of 10. So, how large of a backyard would number 10 have? Can anyone, 10 or 11 or 9?
22 feet.
Okay. So is that ideal? Is there going to be a fence put in from Unit 11 to Unit 8? Are we worried about trespassing? I mean, we're vehemently against it, and sorry not to cause problems, but are we worried about noise complaints from, we moved to 87th because it was quiet. We didn't have neighbors. We lived in a dense forested area. I loved the nature growing up, and now all this is going to be taken away, and people aren't going to have that same experience. So that's something to consider of you're changing it from landscaped naturalness to a community. Thank you.
Thank you.
We live directly behind this. I have lived there for 66 years, and what you are saying about the water is not exactly correct. When we do not have a drought and we have a lot of rain, we flood terribly. We just had to replace 3 sump pumps to the tune of $4,000 from the existing water problems already. And we have 2.5 acres almost of land under water at times. When I was a little girl, it was a sheep pasture. There was no water. All the water has been bequeathed to us. We will have problems with people trying to get onto the swamp, which is about 2 feet deep on our side. It may be deeper on the other side, but that's filled in too. Our side was never dug out. We will have people trespassing on the back of our land. Are we the ones responsible for having to fence the back of 5 acres? And what if our garage floods? We have a full basement on the house. What if the basement floods? And none of this can keep up with this. The water out there has been a huge problem for many, many years. Yes, DuPage County probably should have done something about it, but they have not. And people have been working on resolving the problem for years and years and years. We get all the water coming from Lamont Road to the west. We get all of the water coming from down by Woodridge, going to the east. It goes across the back of all the properties and then down into the swamp and through the little bitty ditch and the 12-inch pipe. When you take out all of the grass and the topsoil and everything that absorbs water, that water is going to come down, and I believe it'll be more than your little bitty retention pond will ever handle, because it's just going to come swooping down the hill. Right now, it doesn't come down quite as fast. And we are still getting water from storms 2 and 3 days after the storms when you are saying you are going to release your water. Now, we have 5 acres, and we have a right to still have some land after people get done playing with the floodwater.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Ian Dilworth. I live kitty corner to the southeast of this property, and there's another new construction that went in kitty corner even farther, right on 87th. I'm sure they followed all the codes. Their entire property looks like a giant reservoir, and it totally changed the flow of water through my house. So they followed all the DuPage codes, and it hasn't seemed to have done anything for the water that's come through. This development seems to be cramming way too much into too small a space. They're asking for a lot of variances. It's too close to 87th. I don't know if there's even room for a sidewalk there in the future along there. There's obviously safety issues with coming out. It doesn't fit with the feel of Darien. We're certainly not that neighborhood to have buildings right up along the street. This is this is not even a suburban area. It almost feels like a rural area with all the trees and the big open spaces. It's way too close to existing neighbors. I wish this wasn't grayed out. If you could see how close those two houses are on either side of those people moved there because of this big, beautiful space, and now they're going to have people spitting distance from their bedroom window. It's a really sad thing. There's already a variance to the east. The gentleman who built his house many years ago to the east of there has a variance to build his house closer to that property line, and now there's another variance coming in to scooch all those houses closer. So now we've got two encroaching variances. There's distance between buildings and houses and property lines for a reason, and now there's several, or two different variances on that area. I totally understand how the design of the reservoir is designed to hold the water and then slowly release it. I do not understand how that is going to be released, if there's a valve, how this is slowly done, and what happens when the reservoir fills up and then there continues to be flooding. Can that reservoir fill and then all of that water is continuing to come over if it does overflow? Sorry, I'm going through a lot of things really fast. I hope that you guys can follow up on some of these questions, especially this next one. I heard there was mention of a geotechnical report that has not been done, and why is that not done during this phase of the decision making? It seems like we should, you guys especially, should have all that information. I wish we had access to that as well. Has there been a wildlife impact study? Oldfield Oaks is an adjacent forest preserve that was mentioned, and this is a corridor for that. There's all kinds of deer and foxes and hawk, and I've seen a beaver go up through my yard once, and I don't know how this is going to affect that, but I don't know if there's any kind of study on that. Again, I hope that you guys can follow up with these gentlemen with some of those questions, specifically why the geotechnical report's not done, wildlife impact study, the fencing. That would help prevent some trespassing issues, obviously. I hope you guys make the right decision on this. It really will affect the way this neighborhood is going to feel. I mean, and you just look at it, and all the other properties next to it, it does not fit there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Tony Antiporic, and I live at 2919 87th Street. I'm the lot right on the east side of the proposed program. I'm hoping the city council will recognize the homeowners in the area in the proposed development these people do not want this to go through to change from R1 to R3. In the past, with all the water, and you have to be there, you have to be a landowner to see what's really happening when there's a storm. And I'm not saying a 100-year storm, I'm saying 2 inches. That retention pond, all that stuff is just going to flow over, and whatever it's holding, and it's going to wait 3 or 4 days to continue to go south. The people that own that property is never going to be dry. As a matter of fact, I took a walk just the other day and went to the southeast corner. And we've been in a drought for a long time. I kicked off the leaves, and that ground was wet to the point where you could stick your finger in it. It doesn't dry like everybody thinks it's going to dry. We talk about the flooding. We talk about all the cars that are going to be 210 cars per day in and out of that development. But let's talk about what's really important. And that's the people that live in this neighborhood. We walked through the neighborhood and we got signatures on petitions, over 50 of them. And these people some of them had no idea what was going on because they didn't get an envelope that said there's a meeting about this, that, and the other thing. when we had their signature for the petition to stop R3, we also asked them to put down how many years they lived in Darien. And the combined number was over 1,000 years. 1,000 years. That's 1,000, here we go with the money. That's 1,000 checks that came in to pay for the property taxes. These people don't want this to happen because they don't want their neighborhood to be changed. And they're asking you to have their back and vote no to R3. People want to develop it, let them take down the 3 houses and put up 6 houses, and there could be $2 million a house. Doesn't matter. But these people don't want the development that you're proposing to be there. They just want to be in their neighborhood like they have for a very long time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Third Antipork is coming up to talk. We clearly feel very strongly about this, so I'm not going to recover anything anyone has already said about the extra cars that will be there, about the feelings of the neighbors in the area, about the signatures on the petition. Darien's Code of Ordinance set forth rules, right, for residential development. This developer is asking for 7 major variances, right? Section 5A-7-3-5, with regard to area, width, and lot requirements, says the minimum area for all buildings and structures in the R3 district shall be 20,000 square feet, not less than 20,000 square feet. This developer is asking for a 50% reduction. 50%. They want the minimum lot size to be 10,000 feet. That is a variance of 170,000 square feet, right? That's too much. It's simply too much. The project's density is too high, and I understand what they're saying, that it doesn't make economic feasible sense for them to build anything less than 34 homes here. There's 6 other variants and requests for setbacks, and as everyone has pointed out, we are extremely close to the property line there. There's a retaining wall that is not going to have a fence, or it might have a fence, but it is a 7-foot drop off from that current level to our driveway. We have concerns. Like we said, this builder is an upscale and luxury home builder, and I don't see why there's any reason why they couldn't build fewer homes, more expensive homes, to make up for the deficit of removing 2 or 3 or 4 duplexes. I just ask each one of you to consider, if your neighbors in your neighborhood came to you, got a little development together and got 3 acres of land and wanted to put townhouses in your neighborhood between your home and somebody else's home, would you feel that would be okay? It would be income for the city, but it would radically change the look and feel of the neighborhood that you moved into, and I think you may all agree you wouldn't want that for yourselves. So we are here making our statements. If it needs to be R3 because Darien wants it to be R3, please consider eliminating the variances, the drastic variances of half the square footage. I appreciate your time, and thank you all for your safe service to the Darien community, and congratulations, Mayor, on the Chestnut Court Center.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My name's Corinne Piotrowski, and I am the house that is on the west side of this proposed plan. And when I was building, I was told by the county I had to cut out 5 feet by about 50 feet of a driveway, an asphalt driveway, because my 5 acres wasn't going to be able to, I guess, take the water if that part was not cut out. So I had to have the builder cut that off of the drive and plant grass, which, I don't understand, But now you're talking about a lot of impervious material, cement, homes, everything going up in this small area. And I'm wondering where all the water's going to go when they were worried about my lot, which is mostly trees and grass. And they were worried about a 5 to 6 foot wide by 40 feet of impervious material. There is a lot of dampness all the way in the back because of the water flow. I've been in the area for, not on this lot, but across in Farmingdale Village since 1976, and I've seen many rains come through, and the pond that is there, or the retention pond that is there on off of Lamont and Boughton Road has overflowed many times in some good rains in the last 40 years, where it has flowed across, Boughton Road and flowed down. So you might want to consider all of these homes that are going up in there. There's really not going to be any drainage per se. There's going to be a lot of cement in that, and the people in the back on wood crust are definitely going to be affected. So I'm hoping, Darien is a wonderful place to live, but I'm hoping you're going to think about everybody around. Wildlife, neighbors, just all in general. Okay? Thank you.
Seems like public comment is over. I'm going to ask for a motion in a second first, Mary.
Okay.
All right, public comment is over, so I'd like to have a motion on to approve an ordinance approving a rezone from R1 Single Family Resident District to R3 Multifamily Resident District, preliminary plat of subdivision, special use for planned unit development, PUD, preliminary PUD approval, and certain variations for the Woodland Glen subdivision. Do I have that motion? Tom Belzak, second by Ted Schauer, and now discussion on the council.
I know that they said the geotechnical,
They're coming, that's coming.
but is that typically something that comes later?
There's 2 points to that. First of all, the geotechnical report in its final form has not been approved or disapproved. What'll happen is, typically what happens is, on a development of this type, there's some preliminary study. In this case, was it Kane? Kane DuPage? Yeah, Kane DuPage is the go-to for these types of reports. So what they do is, they basically take an area and they get all their information from a general site. That general site, is it GTS or? USGS. USGS. So all of the land information going back to possibly 1,000, 2,000 years. What was this land prior to? What did it consist of? What are the characteristics of it? What its current condition is? The current condition of it is that there's some moist areas because there's no drainage there right now. So what'll happen is, prior to every footing for a basement, number one, number two, for the roads that are going in there, infrastructure, there has to be a solid ground. Solid ground meaning existing clay or something that needs to be modified to withstand a certain PSI. What that treatment is depends what the report comes back in. But I can guarantee that for the road, for example, the geotechnical will need to be at 35 to 4,000 PSI. If not, there's additional treatment. That additional treatment equates to more construction, more funds that the developer is responsible for. The foundations are along the same way. Anyone want basements? If the basements, for example, there's some loomy soil and it's 25 feet below the ground and somebody recommends that there's a concern with it, then they potentially have to put in caissons. Caissons get to be very expensive. As far as all the groundwater, they mentioned groundwater being within the first 2 feet. Well, the first 2 feet is really immaterial because all of that water is going to get collected through a storm sewer system. So all that water, again, based on the first 2 foot of the report, is going to be captured. So that moist condition goes away by default.
So Dan, it's common that the status of this report is where you would have expected it.
Correct.
No, so I think, Mayor, that's your question.
That's-
Yes.
Yeah. I do
Mary-
appreciate the definition, though. It's,
Right.
it's good to know, but that it's not incomplete, it's not uncommon. I'm sure something like to that nature is quite expensive and extensive. So, yeah. So
That's
that's not
correct.
something that normally would have been presented at this juncture.
And I would ask of Steve to present anything further, or if any of my statements were inaccurate.
Yeah, no, that's correct. Like you said, the final geotechnical investigation would be something we'd do as part of final design, because as preliminarily, I mean, we're working off of the best data we have from public sources like USGS, in terms of what the existing subsoil makeup is, but in terms of doing final design to verify what the existing bearing capacity of the soil is for final design of foundations and roadways, and what the actual soil profile is something that would typically be determined as part of final design.
Thank you.
So, if this is approved tonight, and all these reports get done, all this information comes in, does any of this come back through planning and zoning and
Could change,
municipal
right?
services?
The simple answer is yes. Now, what qualifies for this to come back? It has to be substantially
Right, so if
compliant.
something comes back that seems like it's a big change from what we
Correct.
approved tonight.
The petitioner may either pull his packet and say, well, we can't build due to these conditions, or something may need to be modified. Again, it's not known 100%, but based on what staff has seen so far, there's really no hurdles that would be alarming as far as we're concerned. Not to say there won't be, but
So Dan, the preliminary goes back to the plan commission.
I'm sorry, yeah,
And they
plan-
look at substantial compliance, and then after that, they make, again, a recommendation, and it gets back to the city council
correct,
for the final.
correct.
Anything else?
I'm sorry, could I be allowed to ask one final question?
No, public comments over. All right, I have a motion. Eric?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time on this one again because, of course, it's in my ward. And my biggest concern, I spent quite a bit of time with Dan reviewing this, is the safety for entering and exiting 87th Street. I'm very, very concerned on that one because I think the amount of traffic and the left and right, restriction is fine. I think it's probably going to be circumvented. But then there's also is the acceleration and deceleration lanes, which I think Dan came up with a great idea, but I have no confidence at all in the DuPage County that they'll approve that, because I think that would have to be there. Otherwise, you're creating an accident waiting to happen. And I'm concerned about, I know it's going to be retirement people. All it takes is one kid in there, and you're going to have the school buses coming through. Now I got school buses pulling out on an extremely busy road. And that scares the living heck out of me.
Can I ask a question, Dan? What's across the street?
Well, there's three full, 3 or 4 ingress, egress with full access onto 87th Street.
So don't we have the same issue that he's describing across the street with no restrictions on left-hand turn, right-hand turn, anything like that?
Not very many cars.
My opinion is yes, and again, it's Meadow Lane, I believe Woodcrest, right? Or
Meadow Lane.
Meadow
You know,
Lane. was
if
the
we're
other
all
one.
of a sudden concerned about egress and ingress out of this area, why aren't we concerned about across the street? They've got the same issue.
We also have Downers Drive. Downers Drive, I believe, is 3 or 4 homes that are in a cul-de-sac.
That one already exists. This is a proposal, so you're going to add to it.
I'm talking.
Okay?
if we have a concern about in and out in this subdivision, then why aren't we concerned? So what we're saying is, it exists now on the north side of 87th Street.
What am I gonna do about it?
And we're not concerned about it, but we're concerned about this. That, I mean, to me, it seems like we're being hypocritical here.
And we,
Can I, are you talk? I'll wait.
no, I was just saying, there was Downers Drive and Woodhaven, right, or, so I believe it's Woodhaven. So I want to make sure there was 3, not 4.
And they make left-hand turns and right-hand turns off of that street onto 87.
That is correct.
Woodvale.
Woodvale, excuse me.
Mary?
Well, I previously, for 4 years, lived in the subdivision across the street. Now, I wasn't on the Boughton side. I was closer to the Plainfield side, but there is also other and streets that access that subdivision. You know, it's not like there's that's like that's Meadow
Lane.
Meadow Lane. I wanted to call it Meadowbrook for some reason, but Meadow Lane, yes, it does, reach to homes, but then there's other access points down the road. So it's not the only in and out, whereas in this subdivision, you pretty much are looking at one way in and one way out. I know there's two, the street wraps around, but.
Yeah, but Mary, we're talking hundreds of homes versus 34.
I'm saying, I did make a site visit to the residents to the east, the Antiporix house, because that's what I do. I like to walk the land, and I'm not just going to go over to someone's house and walk their land without their permission. We walked the entire property line and to the back, and, I pulled in, and I had to turn around and be very, very careful leaving their driveway. And I've driven up and down the street. I drive up and down the street all the time because I live off of 87th, which becomes Boughton, which becomes Oldfield Road. I'm going up and down that street all the time, and I've looked at it very differently since this proposal. And I think, there's a lot of things that would really, for safety reasons, need to happen if we're talking just the traffic and just the street. I have other issues, but because of the speed, and no one goes 40 miles an hour. They're going faster than that. And I just think it would be, without the guarantee that there'd be a slower speed limit or some of the things Eric talked about, I think it would be a very dangerous in and out.
Yeah, Dan, I'm sorry. I don't recall the status, if there's traffic studies been completed. There's a number of traffic-related issues. I don't know if that's...
That has been completed, and again, our consultant has reviewed that. He does not anticipate any concerns.
Anything else? All right, I'm going to call the question. We have a motion and a second. In the roll.
Belzak.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Legansky.
Aye.
Kenny.
No.
Sullivan.
No.
Stompanato.
Aye.
Gustafson.
No.
4 ayes and 3 nay.
The motion is approved. I thank the council for their study. I thank the residents who came here tonight. We did listen, and I hope we can alleviate some of the concerns you have. With that, is questions, comments, and announcements of a general nature. Anyone have anything they'd like to add? I would start off by saying on behalf of the city, I want to wish all the residents happy Thanksgiving, and I want to wish my fellow councilmen happy Thanksgiving. Mary?
I want to echo that too. Thanksgiving is a holiday that's, universally non-denominational, and it's something that, we as a nation celebrate. And yes, it's time to be thankful and grateful. And not everybody, will have a big fat turkey on their table or a ham. And, Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church had a flood of people in need come out this weekend to get full dinners and, food pantries and people. There's just a lot more people in need than ever. And so if there's something you can do to make a donation, make a contribution, especially going into the holiday seasons, there's a lot of people that are hard pressed, and do what you can. Every little bit helps. And thank you to my fellow council people and the city staff. I'm very grateful for all the hard work they do, keeping our city safe and our city hall run so smoothly. You deserve Friday off.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn. Alderman Stompanato, second by Alderman Shower. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
You lost your second mic.